What's up, Yossi Master Yoshi?
What's up, Stan the Goat? How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great. We are live, my friend. Welcome to Goats in the Metaverse, our first show.
It is indeed our first show. I love the name, and I'm excited to tell the story of Goats and the Metaverse and this journey that we're about to both embark on. Stanley, why don't you give a little bit of background about Goats and the Metaverse, where the idea came from, and what it is we're going to be doing on the show?
First, we're going to be having a lot of fun. That's the first thing you should know. So, Goats in the Metaverse, Yossi and I are great friends. Yossi is my crypto buddy, my entrepreneur buddy, and I'm Stan the Goat. Have my knowledge about sports cards. I love sports cards. And now, thanks to Yossi, I love NFTs. We're both really heavily into collecting. I'm collecting sports cards. You're collecting NFTs. And we said, we got to combine our powers and our knowledge to do a show called Goats in the Metaverse, to talking about sports cards, collectibles, NFTs.
And you left out the Metaverse.
And the Metaverse. What's it, Metaverse, Yossi?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But first, tell me, why Goats?
Why Goats? All right. So Goats only. Goats means the greatest of all time. So my whole strategy on collecting sports cards is collecting the best of the best, the rarest, most unique sports cards I could find, and buying the best. Everybody knows the GOAT. When Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, all you saw was the GOAT emoji. So I said to myself, what's the best name for a company? Goats only, baby. That's the only thing I collect, goats. And then applying that same theory, now collecting NFTs, buying NFTs.
I love it. So how long have you been doing that for?
So I've been buying sports cards since November of 2019. I've been collecting ever since I was a 7-year-old kid. I remember going to card shows with my friends and buying cards, and I used to love it. Unfortunately, I was very poor, or maybe fortunately, and I didn't have the greatest cards, but I always loved it. I was always a huge sports fan. And then a really good friend of mine was collecting sports cards recently, and he was telling me how great he was doing in the industry. And he was trying to convince me to buy sports cards. He said, hey, this could be a great investment for your kids. And I kind of was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is what I really want to do. And then we had a business transaction. He owed me 15 grand in November of 2019. And he's like, hey, man, why don't you just take that money and buy some sports cards with it? I'll tell you which ones to buy. So how great he was doing. And I said, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. So we took the 15 grand. We bought 2 Luka Doncic's Blue Ice PSA 10s. There's only 99 of those cards ever printed. I own 2 of them. I believe I paid about $6 grand for one, 6 and change, 8,000 change for the other one, same exact card. One just sold in March of this year for $105,000. So
wow.
A $7,000 investment in November of 2019 to 105 in 2021.
Now, you said a couple of interesting things there, which we'll unpack, I'm sure, but you said like Luka, Blue Ice, PSA 10. I have no idea what any of those are. So I'm hoping you'll unpack that and explain for our audience who aren't from the traditional card collecting world. My knowledge of card collecting also goes back to probably when I was 7, 8, 9 years old and was fondly collecting basketball cards. And I come from South Africa, where the NBA wasn't a thing, but NBA basketball cards were a thing. And I remember the experience of opening up a new pack, discovering the cards inside them. And at the time, Michael Jordan was the GOAT, and Dennis Rodman and the Chicago Bulls. And if I got one of those cards in a pack, that was it. I was made for at least a month, filled with excitement. And I still actually have those basketball cards in storage. And I don't even know what they're worth today, but they're probably in a couple of thousands to tens of thousands of dollars, maybe. But they archive a moment in history for me, and I think that's the power of these collectible items, and why I'm excited about how they've been transformed into the digital world. So we'll talk about that some more. So lots to discover there. What maybe a good opportunity to introduce myself a bit?
Absolutely, but before you do that, two things I want to add. Michael Jordan still is the GOAT, and your sports cards are worth money.
Well, we're going to have to find out. I have to fly back to South Africa to go and get them appraised and understand this PSA stuff. But they've been sitting nicely wrapped in storage, haven't been touched for at least 15, 20 years. So hopefully they're still in good condition, and there's some rare ones in there that I was able to get my hands on. So yeah, some background to myself and how Stanley and I got into this Goats and the Metaverse. It's quite funny that I've been talking about crypto and investing in cryptocurrency since I met Stanley. We're part of a group of entrepreneurs called EO, where we meet once a month in a forum with 8 other entrepreneurs, and we discuss our business lives. And I've been talking about crypto since I joined the group, probably, which was in 2017 when I moved to New York, but I've been involved in crypto since much earlier, since 2013. And what's interesting is that every time I speak about it, everyone says, "Oh, that's interesting," and not much happens after that. Enter the world of NFTs, NBA Top Shot, CryptoPunks, and more of these worlds that we'll talk about. And all of a sudden, many more people from the traditional world, if you want to call it that, Stanley included, start noticing, taking interest, and start to get it. And saw the seismic shift from people thought just these crypto things are for financial people or speculators, and really has no real practicality in our day-to-day lives, even though there's a lot of stuff that is happening that has practicality. But when NFTs came onto the scene, it's like the penny had dropped for millions of people, and all of a sudden these things made sense. And that is what got me really excited about this NFT world, about the metaverse, because it seemed like for the first time, the mainstream are now coming into this world. So I've been a crypto evangelist for over 5 years now, and investor in Bitcoin and Ethereum and a number of other protocols and projects. I got my first NFT in 2018 and was really excited at this notion of a digital collectible. Having grown up in the world of games, having grown up in the world of basketball cards as collectibles, the merging of these two realities seemed too good to be true. And that's why I'm excited about the metaverse. And like Stanley, I'm launching a new business, which we'll talk about as time unfolds, and I can share more about it. But it's called Metaversal. I'm actually on my way to Bitcoin Miami to go and meet with other crypto enthusiasts and NFT collectors, and also talk about what we're trying to do at Metaversal over the next few days. I think there's something like 40,000 people coming to Miami for this conference, so it's going to be large. Lots of events happening, and I'm excited to see what we're going to learn there and share that on the show in the weeks to come.
So how lucky is our audience? You're about to go to Miami, and you said, you know what? Before I go to Miami and hang out with 40,000 other crypto enthusiasts, I got to hang out with you guys.
There we go.
Props to that. So what is the metaverse? I mean, I think that's every single person, including myself. Well, now I know what the metaverse is, but is like, just like you're saying, what is PSA 10, right? What is the metaverse? What does that actually mean?
So the metaverse, and the way I think about it, is practically it's the succession of the internet. It's the next iteration of the web. And experientially, it's where we will spend more of our time, if not all of our time, where we work, live, and play in this digital universe. We're already seeing that we spend much more time online, and the pandemic accelerated that. We're all familiar with Zoom fatigue and the amount of time we spent online over the past year. And that experience is very 2D. It's very two-dimensional. It's very native or similar to the way we experience each other in kind of like a flat on the screen realm. What we're going to see is a fast acceleration of this 3D realm and AR and VR that we start to experience in our digital lives. And within that, new experiences that we're going to be living in, and then new assets that we're going to want to own. So we've already spoken about these things called NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, which in essence is the ability to own a single copy of a digital item or a single digital item and be able to prove that and have authenticity and own that. And those are going to become the currency of the metaverse, these assets that we're going to want to own and interact with in the metaverse. So it's this virtual third world, if you want to call it, or second life, where we will be experiencing our reality, where we will be living, where we will be working, where we will be playing. And it's the next iteration of the web. And it's coming. It's already here. There's a lot of stuff happening in it, and we can talk about that stuff. And we're starting to see it's accelerating. So we're going to be spending even more and more time in that metaverse. And there's some exciting reasons why I think that's going to be great for the world, and is part of why we're going to spend the next 20 years of our lives building Metaversal to be part of that story.
Awesome. I love it. And that's, I think that's, once you kind of start peeling back the onion and start diving into it, it's fun. I mean, to me, that's where it kind of brings out, the childhood. It brings out, kind of you playing, video games with your kids or whatever it might be. And you're really diving into this thing. You're like, wow, there's so much here. And to have the ability to be first, right? Even though, on one side of it, we're not necessarily first because, guys like you, and there's other people in the space who are buying these things at pennies on the dollar, right? And now these NFTs are worth, millions of dollars, and you're looking at it from that perspective of like, oh my God, I could have been buying this in 2017, or, going back to CryptoPunks, I could have been getting it for free, right? CryptoPunks, there are CryptoPunks that sold for millions and millions of dollars right now. So looking back at that, you're saying, oh my God, we're not first. But then kind of because we're in the space now, and when I'm talking to other people, colleagues, business people, friends, family members, and I start talking about NFTs, and they're looking at me like I have six heads, right? They're like, what? What is an NFT and it's selling for millions of dollars? What? So from that perspective, we're so early to this thing, right? Because, and that's what gets me really, really excited about it, is there's so much more opportunity, and the technology is mind-blowing, right? And the perspective of, and give props to Gary Vee, people are building economies around themselves, and it's just the beginning, right? What we're gonna see, the fact that, artists are getting involved, celebrities are getting involved, and they're dipping their toes into this. And some people are even saying some of them are, doing money grabs, but wait until they really, really break this down and, Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga start releasing albums as NFTs, right? Wait until those things start to happen, and they will start to happen. It's going to be incredible of what that's going to do for the future of not only NFTs, but industries as a whole, right? We're seeing it, with sports, where now, Major League Baseball and NBA Top Shot, all these different huge organizations are understanding that in order for them to stay ahead of the game and obviously make money and innovate, they have to be involved. And now that they're doing it, like it's incredible to see what the future holds. So I'm definitely excited to see what's to come.
Yeah, and I think if we think about the world and where it's at in terms of NFTs, there has been a lot of attention, and some could say it's a bit hypey with some of the numbers that have been thrown around on some of these assets that have been purchased. And someone could look at that and go, well, that's just speculation. That's not real. But if we look at the kind of past quarter, there's been about $2 billion in sales through NFTs. So it's a big number. But even the biggest platform, which is NBA Top Shot today, which I'm sure we'll speak a lot about on this show, I think they only have about 400,000 or 500,000 active wallets or active collectors. And if we look at the entire NFT ecosystem, maybe there's 1 million people who own an NFT today. A year ago, it was maybe 100,000. So it's 10x from where it was a year ago, but it's still only 1 million people in this world that have an NFT, own an NFT, and have interacted with NFT. So we are extremely, extremely early in that cycle. But what were you saying about every brand, every celebrity, every sports team eventually coming on to this world of NFTs? I think why that's happening is we've seen over the years, there's been these technological shifts in ways that we want to be able to tell our stories and the way we want to be able to interact with those stories. From the printing press, taking stories and putting them into paper, into books, then into radio, then into broadcast TV, then onto the internet, now our iPhones. And this is the next technological innovation that is able to allow us to, one, be an owner and co-creator and co-collaborator with those stories, as well as permanently archive that cultural moment, story, human piece, music into this world that we call the metaverse, which is the internet that is going to be around in 100 years' time. So if you fast forward into 100 years, how are you going to interact with the stories of today? It's not most likely going to be a book that was written in 100 years' time. It's going to be through some virtual realm and experience, and you're going to be accessing that content through that realm, and that content is going to be driven by an NFT that someone created, that someone owns, and that someone now is sharing with the world. And that's the progression that we're going to see from where we are today to why this is a new platform that every brand, creator, influencer, storyteller is going to start incorporating into how they tell that story and how they broadcast that story.
Yeah, and one thing to add on to that, I think, is, we're currently living, and obviously we've seen it for the last few years, of, social media influencers and people literally building, incredible followings and becoming famous by being social media stars, right?
Yep.
And the way they really done that is they built communities, right? They were able to communicate with people and had those stories that were able to connect to other people and say, hey, whether it's business advice or, health advice, whatever it might be, or just sharing stories about other people were able to kind of latch onto that and feel connected to that. And they feel connected to those stories, and now they become a part of that community. And I think, with NFTs, we're seeing that taken to the next level. Now you're able to actually own a piece of those communities. And as these, artists start creating NFTs, you have digital ownership of these items, right? And there's a value to it because somebody else looks at it and says, well, I want to own a piece of that community as well, right? I want to own a piece of that NFT. And that's what's creating these economies and these markets where people are actually, want that, right? And kind of firsthand experience. I own a Patrick Mahomes NFT. I'm a big Patrick Mahomes. I'm a diehard Jet fan, and probably the only person I'll root for, besides every player in the Jets, is Patrick Mahomes, just because, one, I really like him as a person. I like what he's doing to the game of football. I'm heavily invested into his sports cards, his rookie cards. I believe in him. And when the NFT came out, I thought it was done in a really, really authentic way, where they only created 50 of them, right? So if I wanted, they actually created 100 of them, and there was 50 helmets and 50 footballs. And it was, it was a piece of visual art that was designed by Patrick Mahomes. And if you wanted to be one of, let's call it 100 people to own this piece, you have to pay the premium. And in my mind, looking at it as saying, well, this guy's a mega superstar, right? One, I want to own a piece of that, right? But two, there has to be more than 100 people that want to own that as well, right? So now there's a market for that. Now I made a financial investment into that, right? But me looking at it and saying, is there more than 100 people that are willing to own this as well and are willing to pay a price for it, right? And kind of simple economics supply and demand comes into it. And to me, it's something that instant makes sense just because of my strategies and kind of how I look at sports cards, right? And to the outsider, it might say, well, that doesn't really make much sense. But you're almost, now you're almost betting on these people's, lives and their careers, and as they continue to progress, right? And obviously they could have a negative outcome. You're betting on, you have an output that you can make financial reward as they continue to become more and more successful in their careers, and winning multiple Super Bowls or whatever it might be, right? Joining the Hall of Fame, becoming the best quarterback of all time. You're betting on their careers, right? You're betting on the outcome of what's to happen. And I think, to me, that there's just, one, it's so much fun. And two, there's a big financial gain there. And to kind of add on to that, when we started talking about this, one of the things I said, Yossi, is we need to have fun, right? This show has to have fun. We need to have fun. We need to make it fun for our audience. And looking at this whole crazy world of Goats in the Metaverse, it's fun, right? Like, and I'm sure you could make money in other things, and there's a lot of people that do it on a day in, day out basis. But is it fun? Is it interesting? Does it get you really, really excited and get your blood boiling? And are you passionate about it? And to me, this is just loads of fun. So
I think, going back to your Patrick Mahone NFT that you spoke about, now, what that makes me think about is, I come from a venture capital world. I look for innovations in technology, and the kind of Peter Thiel line is a 10x improvement on what existed before. Is this a 10x improvement? Otherwise, it's not worth investing. And you're looking for things that really take you exponentially from where you were to where you want to go. And if I think of cards, let's use that, and the what you just described, a traditional card, let's call it your Mahone card or my Michael Jordan card, right now that sits in storage somewhere safe, dust-free, and doesn't really get much exposure. Doesn't really let anyone interact with it, experience it, and talk about fun. It's not much fun. It's just there. It's sitting. There isn't much that I can do that other than the moment that I got it was that exciting moment for me, and now I know that I own it, and I'm part of the story of these individuals like Michael Jordan. Where a digital NFT now, and where what that does is now I can own that, I can share it, because now people can access it and view it. I don't have to worry that it's going to get damaged or lose its vintage or its shape or anything along those lines. I can potentially fractionalize it and now turn it into something that multiple people can own. I can rent it out. I can lend it. And now the person who I've collected it from can also do stuff with me with it. Maybe anyone who has the original Michael Jordan rookie NFT is now able to go to a specific game at the NBA where he's playing at because they hold that NFT. Or there's a bar in New York City that opens up, or in Chicago, that all the NFT holders are now able to access. Or there's a new merch that gets dropped to people who hold that NFT, the new pair of virtual Air Jordans that I can now wear in the metaverse happens to that. So these are the improvements that this asset now has that I think is that 10x improvement from the traditional collector's card. And it makes sense that we're now in a digitally native world, that people are spending their time on their phones, they're spending their time on their computers, that's how they want to interact with these experiences and with these moments and with these artists and with these sports stars and these creators. So like you say, I think it's a fundamental shift in how we experience our culture. And it's a fundamental shift in how we have fun with that and become a co-owner in that experience. So that's why I'm excited. But I think we've given our case. We've explained why we're excited, what the metaverse is, why NFTs, what it means to be a goat. Maybe it's worth it that we recap maybe on the week on some of the things that we thought have been interesting in this realm that we've now described, and see what are the things that are worth mentioning and maybe talk a little bit more about the type of stuff that we're going to cover in future shows and go deeper into, so that people can get an understanding of what those are and how they can potentially become part of those communities as well.
Sure. And I think let's talk about what the goal is for this show, right? And I think that one is obviously we want to have a lot of fun, but we want to kind of walk our audience through the journey, right? Of what we're finding, what we're seeing. We're not, we're not here selling you financial advice. We're not telling you what to do with your money. We want to kind of break things down in the simplest terms as possible, and kind of introduce everybody to this brand new world, right? And the people that are in this world, we want to learn from them, right? We want to go deeper into them and talk about strategies and see how they're looking at certain things and get insights on hey, here's what we're doing and here's how we see things, but how are you seeing this, right? We want to interview, creators of these NFTs. We want to collectors, investors. We want to kind of bring this whole 360 view of what's happening in this world and be able to showcase it to everybody else. And hey, look, if you guys make some money along the way, God bless you. But our goal is to make some money along the way as we kind of learn and continue to buy and invest into these things. But we want to kind of share the journey with our audience and hopefully build a community, right? Build the community where we can learn from each other and exchange ideas and get insights, because I think that's the most important and interesting thing about this, where, coming from the sports car world, they call sports card industry the hobby. And it's one of the most incredible communities I have seen of how people help each other. There's no competition of like, oh, you have this card, I wish I had this card. I mean, I'm sure that there's definitely a little bit of FOMO. It's like, I wish I had that card, but everyone is kind of working together and continuing to build a community, because as the value goes up of cards overall, if you're a holder of cards, right, your value of cards goes up, right? So if the most expensive card in the world sells for a record-breaking price, and let's say a LeBron James card sells for $5.2 million, and you own a LeBron James card that's worth $200, that value still continues to go up now because there's more eyes on it, right? It's getting publicized on ESPN, it's getting picked up by New York Times and all these other outlets. And now more people are saying, well, what's this, right? Why is this worth money? And I love seeing how kind of these communities engage with it. I'm seeing the same thing in the Discord groups of Zedrun and all the different things that are out there on Bored Apes. And one of the things we talked about before the show was Bored Apes and what's been happening with them this week. Give us a quick 2 cents, and people are like, what's Bored Apes or something? I'm like, oh, I love Bored Apes, right? Like, give us an insight of what's happening. What happened this week?
Well, this week we've seen a battle between Bored Apes community and the Meebits community, rivaling it out on who is the more authentic community to own. And we've seen some pretty influential collectors go ape into Bored Apes and start buying them up, shooting the price from, I think it was about 0.4 ETH a couple of days ago to now over an ETH to be able to acquire one of these apes. And they're a pretty interesting community. There's about 10,000 of them. We're going to go deeper into what they look like, what makes them unique, what is attributable to them. But what we're seeing is that the communities themselves are starting to figure out which one of these assets makes sense, why they make sense, and who are the influencers and the influential people that are starting to acquire these assets. And what does that do to price? What does that do to the perception of them? How does that impact the narrative about Bored Apes? And what does that do in terms of enshrining them as an NFT that people want to collect and hold? And will that be something that is short-term and speculative? Is this something that's going to stand the test of time? Like we have CryptoPunks selling for a couple of $1 million. They're a project now that's been around for 4 years. They've got some OG status. They may be the goats of the NFT realm. Can Bored Apes become that? Do they have that potential? That's what we're seeing play out in the past week, and it's been exciting to watch. If you're a Bored Apes holder, you're very excited. If you know about it and you didn't buy one, you're kicking yourself because you didn't maybe FOMO in, and you're wondering, is it too late now? And that's the kind of narratives that we're seeing happening in this community and in the conversations on the Discord groups.
And one thing to add, where people are like, "What, ETH 0.4? What is?" That's 120% on your money in 48 hours, right? The price is literally 48, 72 hours, 0.4 to over an ETH, right? People are making money, real money. And to me, it's pretty incredible when I'm having conversations with my stock friends and they're like, the market is up 4%, 4%. My portfolio is up 2%, 1%. I'm like, oh, that's really, really, really exciting.
And what's interesting is that the broader crypto market is in a little bit of a downturn, or a little bit soft, if you want to call it that. But we're seeing that some NFT assets are continuing to appreciate even in a downturn in the market. And that's something that's also worth interest, which is interesting to see. How do these assets hold in this crypto economy while the market's bullish? When the market is bearish, which assets appreciate? And can you see this within a comparison to the traditional art world? Is this now becoming a store of value and an asset class that people now want to put money into to actually appreciate their assets in an economy that maybe is in a downturn? And what does that look like? And these are things that are still being figured out. No one knows the answer to these because it's so early in these economies, but they're playing out in real time. And it's happening whether you know about it or you don't know about it. These things are happening. There's millions of dollars that are being traded. There are millions and millions in assets that are being bought and sold. And there's new assets coming onto the market. There's new NFTs coming onto the market. And all of this activity is shaping out into what we're calling the metaverse, and is going to continue to be there and continue to expand and grow as more people enter these economies.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick story that's relative to Bored Apes. One of our guys on our team, Eric, he was telling me a story today where he started a Twitter account 4 days ago, changed his avatar to a Bored Ape because he's a Bored Ape owner. And I believe he has over 400 or 500 followers in 4 days, just engaging with the Bored Ape community. And looking at that from a business perspective, as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, the amount of money businesses and brands have to pay to get 400, not only followers on your Twitter account, but engaged followers, it's tens of thousands of dollars, right? It's not even $1,000. It's a lot of money, right? Because most of the time when people are spending money on ads on social media and growing a following, they do get followers and they can increase, but how many of them are actually engaged, that are actually really in that community? And to me, this is where it's like, these communities are so passionate and there's so much there, that once kind of the rest of the world starts to tap into it, and that's what I've been hearing and kind of talking to you and other friends and colleagues in the industry of, Bored Ape has legs because the community is very, very, very passionate. And to me, that's kind of what convinced me to say I want to invest into Bored Apes, because of how passionate that community is, and how, by changing an avatar to an ape and just having engagements with other people who have apes as avatar, you're able to grow that community to 400 people in 4 or 5 days. I think that's incredible.
I see Eric in the comments saying, "Go Bored Apes." I think what that says and what that tells is the power of ownership, and the ability to now own part of that community is being played out by the community. It also says the power of authenticity. You can't buy that. You can't have someone just throw their money around and say, okay, I'm going to make this community something that's authentic and resonates with other people, that they want to hold on to it, they want to collect, they want to be part of it. That has to happen organically. And we've seen that play out in the crypto world with the protocols that are building real momentum and real traction and have real strong communities around them, and some of the others that raise sometimes billions of dollars and have failed to be able to do that. So that authenticity is being played out into these assets as well. And that story has to play out organically. And we're starting to see that in the Bored Apes world, that maybe these are going to become one of those that are going to become those goats in the metaverse that will stand the test of time. And there's going to be a whole bunch of cultural status, financial status, as well as bragging rights for being one of these 10,000 holders of these Bored Apes. We've seen that play out with CryptoPunks, and maybe it's Bored Apes time. Let's see how that plays out. And we're going to be covering that in the show. We're going to be bringing people from the Bored Apes community onto the show. We're going to be bringing the creators, the collectors, the traders, and have their view as this plays out, along with the other communities that we've mentioned.
One thing I want to kind of touch on as well is in the sports car market, something very interesting happened this week as well, which ties to what's happening in crypto and NFTs as well. So a Wayne Gretzky rookie card, PSA 10, there's only 2 copies in the world, broke the record and sold for $3.75 million.
Wow.
And there's a few reasons why that is extremely significant. So the sports card market is down as well, just like the crypto market. I would say it's probably down, 30% from the highs, which obviously have been all-time highs. But if you look at that specific card and you look at the really top premium cards like this Wayne Gretzky rookie, there's only 2 copies in the world in the PSA 10. The last card that sold, which I believe is the same exact card as this one, sold for $2.5 million less in December of 2020. So
not even a year ago.
Not even a year ago.
Wow.
Okay? Not even 7 months ago. So in 7 months, this card went up $2.5 million. And, one, that's absolutely incredible, right? From what's the ROI on that? I'm not good at math, but it's a lot. But 2, go looking at it from the perspective of kind of people saying, well, the card market is down, right? Yes, the card market is down on your kind of everyday purchases, on your modern, on base cards that there's a lot of supply of. But when you're talking about the goats, right? The rarest of the rare, not only is the market up, it's all-time highs, right? You constantly have this, world records being broken, and $3.75 million for a piece of cardboard, right? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and looking at it from the perspective of whoever bought that card previously, and broke the record in December 2020, was looked at as, probably crazy.
Yeah.
And now looking at it today, they're doing pretty, yeah. They got a good return on their investment. And to me, like, I continue to be bullish on the sports car market if you have the right strategy, right? If you're looking at it of how can I buy things that have a long-term effect to it? And when I started going deep into sports cards, that was my methodology. It was like, I want to invest into things that are long-term holds. What is the value of this card going to be in 15, 20 years, right? Is this card going to pay for my kid's college fund? That's how I was looking at things. And I continue to look at things that way, as opposed to like, can I flip this in 3 months, 6 months, a year? Now, don't get me wrong. If I could get that kind of return on my investment, I'm going to sell that card, right? It's going to be really, really hard for me to do, but you got to take money off the table. But at the same time, if the card doesn't appreciate, 100%, 200%, 1,000%, long term, am I going to win, right? And to me, that's kind of my strategy on investing into collectibles and NFTs. And it has worked to this point, and I believe it's going to continue to work. And I think that's a mistake. What I've seen a lot. I'm sure you've seen it in the crypto market and NFT market, but I see it every day in the sports car market and just in people's investment strategies overall, is they're chasing it, right? They're chasing the short-term money, and that's when they're getting burned. When they start following the long-term money and looking at it as long-term strategy and investments, it seems to be, a win-win all the time.
Yeah, I think if you can extend your timeline to a 10 to 20-year timeline on anything you're looking at, it changes the way you see whatever it is you're looking at. So if it's a card, if it's an NFT, if it's some kind of asset, that timeline horizon is what should dictate, at least in our way of looking at it, whether this is something that you want to be investing in or taking a position in, or being a part of. Because like you said, it's not only about the financial rewards, it's also about the community, the experience, the fun that you're having in that process. But what I think you're saying, what is interesting and what we're seeing is in a shift in the market is we've gone from, broadcast is the way that we had to potentially monetize these stories. You had to broadcast to millions of people around the world, and you subsidize that with advertising. And the more eyeballs and the more listeners and the more people that you reached, the more you could command for the dollar spend on advertising. And you kind of commoditized as much as you could to get as far as wide as you can. And that was the business model. And that's a business model that we all know very well. Facebook, Google, most of the media companies in the world today. What we're seeing now is that you no longer need 1 billion people or 10 million people to be able to build a audience that resonates and is prepared to pay the kind of price that is a $3.75 million on a Wayne Gretzky card. You are only now needing to find that one true fan, that one super fan in the world of 7 billion people who really loves you, really loves your work, really loves what you're putting out, and is prepared to pay that price. Because in 10 years' time, if you are a GOAT, if you are that kind of creator and person, there's going to be another super fan down the line who's prepared to pay even more than you were to be able to own part of that story. So we're going from this mass commoditization and broadcasting to really almost a one-to-one experience with your super fans, collectors, and creators. And that drastically changes the relationship between creators and owners and what they can do together. And we're seeing that play out in real time in these numbers.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's not just super fans, right? It's hedge funds, it's corporations. I mean, now we're playing in an arena where, the other news that came out this week is that, Gary Vaynerchuk and Michael Rubin announced that they're starting their own a new company called Candy Digital, and those are big names that are now, obviously Gary's been in the NFT space, but Michael Rubin, he owns Fanatics, part owner of the Philadelphia 76ers, and now they have a contract with MLB where they're going to be creating, NFTs that are tied to MLB. That's a big deal for both the sports, collectible space and in the NFT space, where you have some big heavy hitters that are coming in to really make some damage. And, you have a lot of other people that are, a lot of billionaires and corporations that are looking at this and saying, hey, we could come in here as well and play in this arena, right? And we can make money on it, right? And that's something that I believe is going to continue to evolve these industries. We never had this in sports cards, right? We never had this in NFTs because they're so new. But you have real billionaires, right? You have billionaires and corporations and hedge funds coming in and spending money and getting into the space and investing into infrastructure and investing into the believe in the space, that are passionate about the space. And I believe that that's, kind of gives you a good hint as to what's to come in these arenas, right? And some of the things that we'll go deeper into, of like I'm bullish on Zedrun, which is a digital horse racing, which some people think is crazy, but I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I mean, and it's not even in the top 25 NFTs in the world, right? It's not even kind of in that mover shaker. It's still so new. There's still so little people that are involved in it. But, what happens if, they sign a deal with, I don't know, whatever large
BMW.
With who?
BMW as a sponsor.
Yeah, well, I mean, they just signed a deal with Atari when obviously everybody knows who Atari is, but Atari is not BMW. But you sponsor you get some real sponsors behind it. You get some real, billionaires to come out and say, hey, Zedrun, this is the way of the future. Or, I don't know, Ray Dalio or Bill Gates or whoever it is comes out and backs these digital horses or a different NFT project. What does that do, right? All of a sudden, it makes it legit. Look at Elon Musk and Dogecoin, right? Like literally, Dogecoin is built on Elon Musk saying that it's going to go to the moon, and everybody's like, "All right, it's going to go to the moon."
I'm in.
But there's nothing to it.
Zedrun, I don't know if they've announced it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be soon. I think they just closed a round for about $30 or $40 million. By some very prominent VCs. So I'm sure that announcement's going to come out. For those of you who don't know, that Stan is not only a goat, but he's also a horse stable collector, virtual horse stable collector, and he'll tell you about his Zedrun collection. It's a fascinating world. It's the new economy. It's the new way of going to the races. It's not cruel to animals. It's globally accessible. It's available to the youth. And it's in an industry that traditionally is a dying industry. I think horse racing and horse betting is on a downturn. But what we're seeing is this is a new modern iteration of that and could be a multi-billion-dollar industry in and of itself that's just getting started. I think there may be, I don't know what the active numbers are, maybe 7,000 or 10,000 people who are playing actively on Zedrun today. And we're going to see that explode. You want to say something?
I believe it's more. I don't know the exact. I know that in March they had 600 stables, which there were 600 different owners, and then in May it was 60,000. There was 60,000 stables. So
60,000 stables, but how many daily active players?
I don't know the exact number. We'll
get those details.
But it's definitely growing, and it's continuing to grow. And Eric, 55,000 members are
in their Discord. Amazing. For those of you who don't know, Discord is a chat app that most of these communities use to communicate and facilitate with their communities. It's a way that the metaverse communicates across all of these different communities that we've spoken about. Bored Apes has their own Discord, Zedrun, CryptoPunks, any community worth its salt has a Discord channel and is active, and you can tell a lot about the project based on the communication that's happening within the Discord, who's in it, and what's being discussed there.
And quick homework assignment before we wrap up. Anybody that wants to learn, dive in a little bit deeper about any of these communities, go to the website, check out, go to Zedrun's website or Bored Apes website and join the Discord group. And you could really, you could get lost in those communities. There's a lot going on, but that's where you could kind of really start digesting what's happening, make friends. And I think the interesting part is how people are so open to sharing ideas and giving insights. And you could literally say, hey, I'm new and I don't know anything about this and I need help or I want to learn more. And how many people raise their hand and say, how can I help and what information can I share with you? And they're not doing it because they're trying to make money off you. They're doing it because they genuinely want to grow these communities and continue to grow these communities. And they're doing it, one person at a time. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see that happen.
It is amazing to see that happen. I think for our first show, we've thrown a lot onto our audience. We've spoken about record-breaking card sales, virtual horses, Bored Apes, and the metaverse and NFTs. we just wanted to give a sprinkle of the universe that we'll be talking about in the coming shows. And what you can expect is that we'll be recapping each week what we think is the newsworthy stories, which are interesting, which are worth sharing with you, and our take on them, and then going deeper into each one of these communities, each one of these worlds, bringing on the traders, the collectors, the creators, so that you can get a deeper understanding of them and hopefully become a community member of them as well, and come on the ride with us as we unpack this journey and start to explore goats and the metaverse. Stanley, any closing comments from there?
No, this was fun. I can't wait to do it next week. And obviously, if you guys have any questions, check us out. You could DM me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Same thing with Yossi, and feel free to ask any questions. We're here to help and drop as much knowledge as we can, and let's have some fun. I know I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to next week. I can't wait to hear the recap of Bitcoin in Miami. That sounds sexy.
I'm gonna share all the stories, NFT related and more, from that trip, and I'll be reporting to you from Miami when we record the show next week. I had a lot of fun as well. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to many more.
Peace out.